I am mad scientist. It's so cool.
あなたのバナナブニュブニュだねって言ってみて。
Steins Gate begins with a man putting a banana in a microwave, and somehow, approximately 12 hours later, you're watching that same man psychologically disintegrate because the universe has decided one specific girl needs to die. Which is quite the escalation. And that is basically Steins Gate's greatest trick. Because when I first started watching this, I thought, okay, when does the time travel anime actually start? There's this guy talking to himself, his friend is making sexual jokes all the time, and a girl keeps saying for an uncomfortable amount of time. I genuinely thought people had tricked me into watching 20 minutes of unemployed people hanging out in an apartment. They had. Steins Gate follows Rintaro Okabe. Although if you ask him, his name is actually Hyuin Kuma. Mad scientist, enemy of the organization, destroyer of absolutely fucking nothing. Okabe is immediately one of the strangest protagonists you can give a story like this, because he behaves like he knows he's in an anime. He dramatically answers phone calls that aren't happening. He invents conspiracies. He gives everyone stupid ass nicknames, and he's apparently built his entire personality around making sure nobody can tell when he's being sincere, which is funny till it stops being funny. And this is one of the things Steins Gate does extremely well. Hyuin Kuma starts as a joke. Okabe, he's an awkward guy doing a mad scientist performance, but that performance is also armor or some sort of shield. Whenever something becomes uncomfortable for him, whenever someone gets too close, whenever Okabe doesn't know what to say, problem solved. And for the first half of the show, you can mostly laugh at him for it, because nothing is really going wrong yet. This brings us to probably the most controversial thing about Steins Gate. The beginning is slow. I don't even think that's an insult, it just is. Characters sit around, they talk, they experiment with the phone wave. Daru makes a joke that should probably get him removed from the premises. Kurisu argues with Okabe. Okabe argues with Kurisu. Okabe loses. He pretends he didn't. Repeat. And I understand why some people bounce off the show here, because if someone tells you, you have to watch Steins Gate, it's one of the greatest time travel stories ever made, you probably don't expect episode 4 to contain this much discussion about bananas. But I think cutting this section down dramatically would actually damage the story, because Steins Gate needs you to understand something before it actually starts hurting these characters. Their normal life. The lab is stupid, it's cramped, half their inventions don't work, nobody has any money, but it becomes comfortable. You learn the rhythm of these people being together. Mayuri says, Kurisu gets irritated. Daru is sentenced to another 10 years on a government watch list. Okabe acts insane, and eventually you stop waiting for the plot to interrupt them. You just like being there. And that is precisely when Steins Gate decides, okay, let's ruin it. The actual time machine in Steins Gate is one of my favorite pieces of fictional technology because it looks like complete fucking shit. There is no giant glowing portal, no DeLorean, no futuristic chamber, no police box. This is the machine that threatens causality itself? Look at it! I wouldn't trust this thing with soup. Eventually, the group discovers they can send text messages into the past. Emails. And this is where the story introduces one of its most important ideas. Changing something small can move you into a different timeline. History changes, people's memories change, events rearrange themselves, but Okabe, he remembers the previous world. This ability gets called Reading Steiner, which initially sounds pretty convenient. He gets to remember timelines everyone else forgot. Cool superpower, right? Except, Steins Gate gradually reveals that remembering everything is probably the worst possible version of this ability, because when the world resets, everyone else gets to forget. Okabe doesn't. And then episode 12 happens. Up until this point, Steins Gate has been increasingly suspicious. CERN, the Rounders, strange messages, something clearly isn't right, but the lab still feels safe. And then they come in. Mayuri gets shot. And suddenly, the show you've been watching does not exist anymore. Okabe uses the time leap machine. He goes back. He tries again. Mayuri dies. He goes back. Different plan. Mayuri dies. Again, and again, and again. Sometimes CERN kills her. Sometimes an accident kills her. Sometimes the universe practically improvises. And this is where the slow character stuff from earlier starts collecting interest. Because Mayuri isn't important because the plot tells us this character is important. She's important because we spent hours watching her exist. She ate with these people. She worked on costumes. She interrupted conversations. She said stupid things. She was a part of the room. So watching Okabe repeatedly fail to save her starts becoming exhausting in exactly the way the story wants. Time travel stops being, what cool thing can I change? And becomes, how many times can I watch my friend die before I stop functioning? This is where Okabe becomes a much better character than I initially expected. Because Hyoin Kuma starts disappearing. He doesn't have the energy for this bit anymore. There's no audience. There's no point. He's watching everyone continue normally while carrying memories that literally no one else possesses. Imagine seeing your closest friend die 10 fucking times and then walking back into the room and she's smiling. For her, nothing happened. For you, it was 10 minutes ago. That is horrifying. And Steins Gate understands something that a lot of time travel stories skip. Redoing an event doesn't undo the experience of the person doing the redo. The timeline resets. Okabe doesn't. Every failure accumulates inside one person because nobody remembers what he's been through. He can't even properly share it. That ridiculous fake mad scientist persona from earlier, it was so much easier for him. Kyoma could turn everything into theater, but there's eventually nothing theatrical about this anymore. He's just tired. Eventually, Okabe realizes that saving Mayuri means undoing the D-mails, one by one, which is already miserable because those messages weren't random. People used them to change things they genuinely wanted changed. Bodies changed her past, Luca changed their life. Each reversal means walking up to somebody and essentially saying, hey, that better version of you life that you got, I need it back. And then we reach Kurisu. Because after undoing everything else, Okabe discovers the original problem. On the world line where Mayuri survives, Kirusu dies. The Beta world line leads towards Kirusu's death and eventually World War III. Okabe has spent the entire second half destroying himself to save one person, only to discover that the price is another person he now loves. Very cool, thank you, Microwave! Kirusu is probably why this part works as well as it does, because their relationship develops almost entirely through being annoying to each other. There isn't some instant, oh my god, she's the love of my life! They bicker constantly. Okabe calls her Christina, she hates it. He does it again, she thinks he's an idiot. He is an idiot, but slowly, she's also the person who can actually keep up with him, scientifically and emotionally. And eventually, when Okabe starts completely falling apart, Kirusu becomes one of the only people capable of getting through to him. Which makes the decision to sacrifice her especially cruel. Because she understands it. She helps him do it. And that final conversation before he sends the D-mail that erases their relationship from the world line is brutal, precisely because Steins Gate doesn't need an enormous action scene. Two people know something is ending, and only one of them is going to remember it. And then the show fucking cheats. The show, it's not satisfied with choose which girl dies because that would be depressing. Instead, the ending asks the most Steins Gate question imaginable. What if we just bullshitted our way through causality? Okabe eventually learns about the Steins Gate world line, a timeline where Kirisu lives, Mayuri lives, and World War III doesn't happen. The trick isn't simply changing what happened, it's changing what past Okabe believes happened. Past Okabe needs to see that Kirisu apparently died. That observation motivates everything that follows. So future Okabe doesn't erase the event, he stages it. He recreates the circumstances that caused his younger self to begin the journey without actually letting Kirisu die. Which is such a satisfying solution because Okabe isn't defeating the rules, he's finally understanding them well enough to cheat. And the person who spent half the series screaming about being an evil genius finally has to become clever enough to earn it. And my favorite part of the ending isn't the mechanics, it's Kyoma, because after everything that's happened, Okabe brings the persona back. But now it feels different. At the beginning, Hyoin is just how Okabe avoids reality. At the end, Hyoin Kuma is how Okabe finds the strength to face it. He's exhausted, he's traumatized, he's failed over and over. And then future Okabe basically sends him a message saying, get the fuck up and become the mad scientist again. Deceive the world. So he does. The joke becomes sincere. The fake character becomes something real. And I truly love that about Steins Gate because this anime isn't really about a genius mastering time travel. Okabe spends half the show having absolutely no idea what the fuck he's doing. It's about somebody being crushed by consequences and deciding to try again anyway. So when people say Steins Gate gets good after 12 episodes, I don't completely agree. It gets different after 12 episodes. The second half couldn't work without the first. You need the stupid microwave. You need the pointless conversations. You need Mayuri saying tuturu for the 8,000th time. You need Okabe and Kirisu arguing about nothing because Steins Gate's greatest weapon isn't time travel. It's familiarity. It makes you comfortable, then it weaponizes that comfort against you. And by the end, something as simple as seeing two characters meet again can hit way harder than an entire timeline collapsing. Steins Gate is ridiculous. Its time machine is a fucking microwave. Its protagonist spends half the story arguing with an imaginary organization. And one of the most important scientific discoveries in human history begins with gelatinous bananas. And somehow it becomes one of the most sincere stories I've seen about regret, about wanting to undo something, about realizing you can't erase what an experience did to you, and about continuing no matter the odd. Maybe that's why the ridiculous parts matter so much, because without them, there'd be nothing worth going back for. Later.